The wind howled through the Rockies, sharp and cold, as if it knew the secret I'd buried deep in my chest. I stood at the trailhead, my boots sinking into the damp earth, watching Riley's silhouette against the jagged peaks. She was my best friend, my compass. But tonight, I feared she'd be my undoing. My name is Avery, 25, a graphic designer from Denver with a knack for overthinking and a heart that's loved Riley since we were 16. She's straight, or so she's always said, vibrant, fearless, with auburn hair that catches the sun like fire. We'd hiked these trails a dozen times, but this trip felt different. Maybe it was the way her laugh echoed in the car on the drive up, or how her hand brushed mine when we unpacked the tent. I told myself it was nothing, just my stupid heart reading too much into her warmth. We started our climb at dawn, the trail winding through pine forests and past streams that glittered like shattered glass. Riley led, her strides confident, her backpack bouncing lightly. "You're slow today, Ave," she teased, glancing back with that grin that made my stomach flip. I forced a laugh, adjusting my pack to hide the flush creeping up my neck. "Just enjoying the view," I said, and immediately regretted it. Her eyes sparkled with mischief, but she didn't push. By midday, we reached a meadow blanketed in wildflowers, purple lupins and golden columbines swaying in the breeze. Riley flopped onto the grass, arms spread wide, her hair fanning out like a halo. "This is why we do this," she said, her voice soft, almost reverent. I sat beside her, close enough to feel the heat of her arm, but not daring to touch. My sketchbook lay open in my lap, but my pencil froze. How could I draw the mountains when all I saw was her? We talked about everything and nothing, her new job at a wildlife rehab center, my latest freelance gig, the way the city felt too small for her dreams. She spoke of freedom, of wanting to find herself, out here in the wild. I nodded, but my mind screamed, "What if you find me instead?" I bit my lip, silencing the thought. She was straight. She dated guys, nice ones, terrible ones, none of whom lasted. I was just her friend, the one she called at 2 a.m. when life got heavy. As the sun dipped low, we set up camp near a cliff overlooking a valley. The air grew crisp, and I busied myself with the tent to avoid her gaze. Riley built the fire, her hands steady as she stacked logs. "You're quiet," she said, not looking up. "Something up?" My heart thudded. "Just tired," I lied. She hummed, unconvinced, but let it go. Dinner was instant noodles and shared stories, the fire crackling between us. The stars emerged, sharp and endless, and Riley leaned back, her shoulder brushing mine. "You ever feel like the universe is trying to tell you something?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I froze, my breath catching. "Like what?" I managed. She shrugged, staring at the sky. "Like there's something you're missing, right in front of you." My pulse raced. Was she talking about us? Or was it just the mountains, the stars, the weight of the world? I wanted to ask, to spill everything. How I'd loved her for years, how every touch felt like a spark, how I was terrified of ruining us. But I didn't. I just nodded, my hands twisting in my lap. That night, we crawled into the tent, our sleeping bags inches apart. The wind roared outside, but inside, it was just us, her breathing, my heartbeat, the unbearable space between. I lay awake, staring at the canvas ceiling, wondering if I'd survive this trip without breaking. Riley shifted, her hand grazing mine in the dark. "Night, Ave," she murmured, her voice soft and close. I closed my eyes, praying for sleep, but all I could think was, this night might change everything. The morning sun sliced through the tent, waking me to the sound of Riley unzipping the flap. "Rise and shine, sleepyhead," she called, her voice bright but edged with something I couldn't place. I rubbed my eyes, the memory of her hand brushing mine in the dark still burning in my mind. We packed up quickly, the air between us charged with an unspoken tension. Riley was quieter than usual, her usual chatter replaced by long glances at the horizon. I wanted to ask what was wrong, but fear glued my tongue. Instead, we hiked higher, the trail growing steeper, the views more breathtaking. The Rockies stretched out like a promise, wild, untamed, full of secrets. By noon, we reached a lake, its surface a mirror reflecting snow-capped peaks. Riley dropped her pack and kicked off her boots, wading into the icy water with a laugh. "Come on, Ave, live a little," she shouted, splashing me. I hesitated, then joined her, the cold biting my skin but her smile warming me. We stood there, ankle-deep, our laughter echoing off the rocks. For a moment, it was just us, no past, no fears, just this perfect, fragile now.
But the moment didn't last.
As we dried off on the shore, Riley's expression shifted. "You ever keep something from someone because you're scared it'll change things?" she asked, picking at a blade of grass. My heart stopped. Was she talking about me? About us? I swallowed hard, my voice barely steady.
Yeah.
All the time. Her eyes met mine, searching, but she didn't press. Instead, she stood, brushing off her shorts. "Let's keep moving." The trail grew treacherous, winding along a narrow ridge. I focused on my steps, but my mind was a storm. What was she hiding? Did she know how I felt? The thought made my chest ache. I'd spent years building walls around my heart, convincing myself I could love her in silence. But every look, every touch, chipped away at those walls. We stopped at a lookout point, the world falling away below us. Riley leaned against a boulder, her hair catching the wind. "This place makes you feel so small," she said, her voice soft. "But also free, like you could be anyone." I wanted to tell her she was already everything, brave, beautiful, my entire world. But I just nodded, my throat tight. That evening, we camped in a clearing surrounded by pines. Riley was restless, pacing as the fire died down. "Ave, can I ask you something?" she said suddenly, her voice low. My stomach twisted. "Anything," I said, bracing myself. She hesitated, her eyes flickering with something like fear. "Do you think people can change? Like who they are, deep down?" The question hit like a punch. I thought of the years I'd spent hiding, the nights I'd cried over her, the way I'd convinced myself she'd never see me as more than a friend. "I think," I said carefully, "people can surprise you. Sometimes they just need the right moment to show who they've always been." Her gaze held mine, intense, unreadable. For a second, I thought she'd say something that would break me open or set me free. But she just nodded, turning back to the fire. "Yeah," she murmured. "Maybe." We climbed into the tent, the silence heavier than the night before. I lay there, my heart pounding, wondering if I'd missed my chance. Her breathing slowed, but I knew she wasn't asleep. The air felt alive, like the mountains themselves were holding their breath. I closed my eyes, praying for courage, but all I could do was listen to the sound of her beside me, so close and yet so far. The third day dawned gray, clouds rolling over the peaks like a warning. Riley was up before me, sitting outside the tent with a mug of coffee, her eyes distant. I joined her, the silence between us thick with unspoken words. "Storm's coming," she said, nodding at the sky. "We should head back soon." I nodded, but my heart sank. I wasn't ready to leave. Not the mountains, not this fragile bubble we'd built. We hiked in near silence, the trail descending through dense forest. The air grew heavy, the first drops of rain pattering on the leaves. Riley's mood was off, her usual energy replaced by a quiet intensity. I caught her glancing at me, her expression unreadable, and each look sent a jolt through me. What was she thinking? Did she feel it too, this pull, this ache? By afternoon, the rain was steady, soaking our clothes and chilling our skin. We found shelter under a rocky overhang, huddling close to stay warm. Riley's shoulder pressed against mine, and I fought the urge to lean into her. "This trip's been different," she said, her voice barely audible over the rain. Don't you think? I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. Different didn't begin to cover it. She turned to me, her eyes searching mine. Ave, you're my best friend. You know that, right? The words were a knife, sharp and double-edged. I forced a smile. Yeah, I know. But inside, I was screaming. I want to be more. She looked away, her fingers twisting together. I don't want to mess this up. Us. My heart pounded. Was she saying what I thought? I opened my mouth, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I reached for her hand, my fingers trembling.
She didn't pull away.
For a moment, we sat there, hands clasped, the rain a curtain around us. Riley, I whispered, my voice breaking. What are you afraid of? She didn't answer, but her grip tightened. The storm raged on, and I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, one wrong move from falling. When the rain eased, we packed up and moved on, but something had shifted. Her touches lingered, a hand on my arm, a brush of her fingers as she passed me water. Each one was a spark, igniting hope and fear in equal measure. We camped that night in a small clearing, the storm still rumbling in the distance. Riley was quiet, her eyes fixed on the fire. I couldn't take it anymore. Riley, talk to me, I said, my voice sharper than I intended.
She looked up, startled, then sighed.
I'm trying, Avenue. I don't know how to say it. Say what? I pressed, my heart in my throat. She shook her head, her expression torn. I'm figuring it out.
Just give me time.
I wanted to push, to demand answers, but the vulnerability in her eyes stopped me. I nodded, swallowing my frustration. That night, we lay side by side in the tent, the air thick with tension. Her hand found mine again, her fingers lacing through mine in the dark. I'm glad you're here, she whispered. I squeezed her hand, my chest aching. Me too, I said, but inside, I was a mess of hope and dread. The storm outside had passed, but the one between us was just beginning. The fourth morning was crisp, the sky clear but heavy with the aftermath of the storm. Riley's mood was lighter, but there was still a shadow in her eyes. We broke camp quickly, the trail leading us through a valley where the air smelled of pine and damp earth. I tried to focus on the scenery, but my mind was on her quiet moments, her lingering touches, the way she'd held my hand in the dark. We stopped at a stream to refill our water bottles, the sound of rushing water filling the silence. Riley sat on a rock, her knees pulled up, staring at the current. You ever feel like you're running from something? She asked suddenly. I looked at her, my heart racing. All the time, I said. What are you running from? She didn't answer right away, just tossed a pebble into the water. Myself, maybe, she said finally, her voice barely audible. I wanted to ask more, but she stood, brushing off her hands. Let's go. We've got miles to cover. I followed, my mind spinning. Was she questioning herself? Her feelings? The thought was intoxicating and terrifying. I'd spent so long hiding my love for her, convincing myself it was one-sided. But now, doubt crept in. What if it wasn't? The trail climbed again, the air thinning as we gained altitude. Riley was ahead, her steps sure, but she kept glancing back, like she was checking I was still there. At one point, she stopped, waiting for me to catch up. You okay? She asked, her voice soft. I nodded, but my eyes betrayed me, lingering too long on hers. She didn't look away, and for a moment, the world shrank to just us. That evening, we camped near a ridge with a view of the stars. Riley was restless again, pacing as she set up the fire. I watched her, my heart aching with the weight of everything unsaid. Riley, what's going on? I asked finally, unable to stand the tension. She froze, her shoulders tensing. I don't know, she admitted, her voice raw. I feel something, Avenue. And it scares me. My breath caught. Feel what? I asked, my voice trembling. She turned to me, her eyes wide and vulnerable. I don't know how to explain it. It's like I see you differently now. Out here, away from everything. My heart pounded so loud I was sure she could hear it. Differently how? I pressed, stepping closer. She didn't answer, just looked at me, her eyes searching mine. The firelight danced across her face, and I saw it. Fear, yes, but also something softer, something that mirrored the ache in my chest. I reached out, my hand brushing her arm. Riley, I whispered, my voice breaking. Whatever it is, you can tell me. She stepped closer, her breath hitching. For a moment, I thought she'd kiss me. My heart soared, then crashed as she pulled back, shaking her head. I need time, she said, her voice barely audible. I'm sorry. She turned away, and I felt the air leave my lungs. We crawled into the tent in silence, her words echoing in my mind. I see you differently. It was hope, but it was also torment. The fifth day felt like walking on a tightrope. Riley's confession, if I could call it that, hung between us, unspoken but heavy. We hiked in silence, the trail winding through a forest of aspens, their leaves shimmering gold in the sunlight. Every glance she sent my way felt like a question, every brush of her hand an answer I was too afraid to believe. We stopped at a small waterfall, the spray cool against our skin. Riley sat on a boulder, her knees drawn up, staring at the water. I sat beside her, close enough to feel her warmth, but not daring to touch. You're quiet again, she said, her voice soft. What's on your mind? I laughed, a bitter edge to it. You really want to know? Her eyes met mine, steady and searching. Yeah, I do. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding. I'm scared, Riley. Scared of what this trip is doing to us. To me. Her brow furrowed, but she didn't look away. What do you mean? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I wanted to tell her everything, how I'd loved her for years, how her words last night had cracked me open, how I was terrified of losing her. But I couldn't. Not yet. Instead, I said, this place, it makes everything feel bigger, realer. She nodded, her eyes softening.
Yeah,
it does. We sat there, the waterfall's roar filling the silence, and I felt the weight of her gaze. It was like she was seeing me for the first time, and it was too much and not enough all at once. The trail grew tougher, the air thinner, as we climbed toward a high pass. Riley was ahead, but she slowed, matching my pace. At one point, she grabbed my hand to help me over a rocky patch, her grip strong and sure. She didn't let go right away, and my heart stuttered. Thanks, I murmured, my voice shaky. She smiled, but it was a nervous smile, one I'd never seen before. That night, we camped in a meadow, the stars so bright they felt like they were watching us. Riley was quieter than ever, her movements careful, deliberate. I couldn't take it anymore. Riley, please, I said, my voice breaking. Talk to me. What's going on with you? She looked at me, her eyes glistening in the firelight. I'm trying Avenue. I've never felt like this before. Not with anyone. My heart stopped. Felt like what? I asked, barely breathing. She took a shaky breath, stepping closer. Like I want to be closer to you. Like more than friends. The world tilted. I stared at her, my mind racing. Was this real? Was she saying what I thought? Before I could speak, she closed the distance between us, her hand cupping my cheek. Her touch was electric, and I leaned into it, my eyes closing. Riley, I whispered, my voice raw. Do you mean it? She didn't answer with words. Instead, she kissed me, soft, tentative, like she was testing the waters. My heart exploded, years of longing pouring out in that single moment. I kissed her back, my hands trembling as they found her waist. When we pulled apart, her eyes were wide, her breath uneven. I'm scared, she admitted, her voice barely audible. But I want this. I want you. The kiss changed everything. The sixth morning, I woke to Riley's arm draped over me, her breath warm against my neck. For a moment, I thought it was a dream, but her sleepy smile grounded me. "Morning," she murmured, her voice soft and shy. I smiled back, my heart soaring, but fear lingered. What did this mean? Was it just the mountains, the isolation, or something real? We packed up slowly, stealing glances and shy smiles. The trail was gentle that day, winding through meadows bursting with wildflowers. Riley walked closer than usual, her hand brushing mine as we moved. Each touch was a reminder of last night, of the line we'd crossed. I wanted to talk about it, to ask what came next, but I was afraid of breaking the spell. At a clearing, we stopped for lunch, sharing a granola bar and a canteen of water. Riley was quieter, her eyes distant. "You okay?" I asked, my voice tentative. She nodded, but her smile didn't reach her eyes.
"Just processing," she said.
"This is new for me, Avenue. I've never, with a girl." My heart clenched. "Do you regret it?" I asked, barely breathing. Her eyes snapped to mine, fierce.
"No. God, no."
"It's just I don't know who I am right now." I reached for her hand, squeezing it. "You're still you, just maybe more of you." She laughed, a soft, nervous sound, and leaned her head on my shoulder. "You make it sound so simple," she said. I kissed her forehead, my heart aching. It wasn't simple, not for her, not for me. The trail climbed again, the air growing colder as we neared the tree line. Riley's mood shifted, her confidence returning as she navigated the rocky path. At one point, she turned, grabbing my hand to pull me up a steep incline. Her grip was strong, her eyes bright with something new, something that looked like hope. "We're good, right?" she asked, her voice soft. I nodded, my throat tight. "Yeah, we're good." That night, we camped near an alpine lake, its surface still as glass. Riley built the fire while I set up the tent, the routine familiar but charged with new meaning. After dinner, we sat close, her head resting on my shoulder. "I've been thinking," she said, her voice quiet. "About us. About what happens when we go back." My stomach dropped. "What do you want to happen?" I asked, my voice barely steady. She looked at me, her eyes searching. "I want to figure this out. With you. But I need time, Avenue. This is all so new." I nodded, swallowing the fear that she'd change her mind, that the city would pull her back to her old life. We crawled into the tent, her hand finding mine in the dark. She kissed me again, slower this time, like she was memorizing me. I kissed her back, pouring everything I'd held back for years into that moment. "When we pulled apart," she whispered, "I'm not going anywhere." I held her close, praying she meant it, but the world beyond the mountains loomed like a shadow. The seventh day was bittersweet. The trail was descending now, leading us back towards civilization, and with every step, I felt the weight of reality creeping in. Riley was quieter, her hand brushing mine less often. I tried to focus on the beauty around us, the golden aspens, the distant peaks, but my mind was on her, on us, on what waited beyond the mountains. We stopped at a lookout, the valley sprawling below us. Riley sat on a fallen log, her knees drawn up, staring at the horizon. "What happens when we get back?" she asked, her voice low. I sat beside her, my heart pounding. "What do you want to happen?" I asked, echoing her question from last night. She sighed, running a hand through her hair. "I don't know, Avenue. I want this but I'm scared. What if I mess it up?" I took her hand, my voice steady despite the storm inside. "You won't. We'll figure it out together." She looked at me, her eyes soft but uncertain. "You make it sound so easy," she said, a small smile tugging at her lips. I wanted to tell her it wasn't easy, that I was terrified too, but I just squeezed her hand. "We're worth it," I said, and meant it. The trail grew easier, the forest thinning as we neared the trailhead. Riley's mood lifted, her laughter returning as she teased me about my slow pace. But there was an edge to it, a nervousness I couldn't ignore. At one point she stopped, turning to me. "Ave, I need you to know something," she said, her voice serious. It's real for me. But I need to figure out what that means. For me, for us." My heart ached, but I nodded. "I'll wait," I said, my voice breaking. "As long as you need." She stepped closer, kissing me softly, her hands framing my face. It was a promise, fragile but real, and I clung to it. That night, our last in the mountains, we camped near the trailhead, the city lights faint in the distance. Riley was quiet, her eyes fixed on the fire. I sat beside her, our shoulders touching. "Thank you," she said suddenly, her voice soft. "For being you. For being here." I smiled, my throat tight. "Always," I said. We lay in the tent, her hand in mine, the stars visible through the open flap. I wanted to freeze this moment, to stay here where it was just us. But the world was waiting, and with it, the uncertainty of what came next. I closed my eyes, her warmth grounding me, and prayed we'd find our way. The final morning broke with a quiet that felt like goodbye. We packed up in silence, the weight of the city pulling us back. Riley's eyes were distant, but she reached for my hand as we started the last stretch of trail, her grip steady. I held on, memorizing the feel of her, terrified of what came next. The trailhead appeared too soon, our car waiting like a reminder of reality. We loaded our packs, the silence between us heavy but not empty. As we drove back to Denver, Riley stared out the window, her fingers tapping nervously. "Ave," she said finally, her voice soft. "I meant what I said. I want this. But I need to be honest with myself first." I nodded, my throat tight. "I know. I'll be here." She reached for my hand, squeezing it. "You're too good for me," she said, a half-smile breaking through. I laughed, shaking my head. "Not even close." Back in the city, life tried to pull us apart. Riley threw herself into work, her texts less frequent, her smiles tinged with uncertainty. I gave her space, but every day, without her, felt like a wound. Weeks passed, and I feared she'd slip away, that the mountains had been a dream. Then, one evening, she showed up at my apartment, her eyes bright with determination. "I've been thinking," she said, stepping inside, "about who I am, who I want to be." My heart pounded as she took my hands, her voice steady. "I'm not straight, Avenue. I don't know what I am, but I know I love you." The words broke me open, tears spilling as I pulled her close. "I love you too," I whispered, my voice raw. We kissed, slow and certain, the city fading around us. It wasn't an ending, but a beginning, messy, uncertain, but ours. We'd face challenges, her family's questions, the world's judgments, our own fears. But we'd face them together, two hearts forged in the Rockies, stronger for it. That night had changed everything, and as I held her, I knew, love, like the mountains, endures.